Hello and welcome YouTube and Grimnorn community to yet another of my build highlight videos. This time it's gonna be the Stormrend Stormserpent Trickster. So this build uses the one-handed axe called Stormrend, which you can get from the ethereal totems, which has the unique ability to enable using Primal Strike with a one-hander or also when you're dual wielding. So if you're dual wielding and you're using this axe and either a second Stormrend or whatever other weapon you would like to, then Primal Strike will always hit with both of your weapons, which means that any global flat damage that usually only would be applied to your two-hander once will be applied to both of the one-handers basically twice, and thus flat damage is really nice to get on top of this weapon for your Primal Strike's damage. The Stormserpent blue 3-piece set has been buffed quite a bit. It was very bad and squishy in the past, and honestly it's still not that great for hardcore at least. Like, I would not suggest this build necessarily in hardcore, it's not really that worth it. With the Stormserpent set, to be honest, maybe you could also try to play the full Ultra set instead, but I mean, I haven't tried that one yet. That should be good, but that also should be better on like another class, like for example a Vindicator probably. Anyway, I was still able to clear all of the main campaign, all of the main campaign's dungeons. Even Morgoneth was okay actually for lightning build to defeat on this build. I did also Shadow Realm 65 to 66 as well as Crucible 150 to 170. You can check out these separate videos for those two as well. And of course I've also cut Lokarr. All of that said, none of the like farming routes, for example SR or Crucible, were really like, I would say, hardcore friendly. They were pretty like kind of sketchy moments in both of them. So yeah, if you're playing this on softcore, the build is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, and it's really good damage, but it's, for my tastes, or like for me being able to recommend you this build for hardcore, it's just too squishy. So let us check out the skill point allocation here in the game. We are using, of course, a Nightblade and a Shaman, right? Let's make the Trickster. And in the Nightblade tree, we're using 19 points of dual blades, which gives us lots of flat pierce damage, which most of which we will convert to lightning damage with the gear. And also this will give us physical resistance. So this is where we get some damage and some tankiness. So yeah, really nice to have, and of course you should have this always at an uneven point, like 19, 17, 21, so on. The even points don't give you Fizz, it's always the uneven points after 5 points that are worth taking. 1 point to ABB and then 15 points to Lethal Assault, because you convert all of that cold damage to lightning as well. And as I said earlier, right, if you're using Primal Strike with two one-handers with a Stormrend and another weapon, then, well, all the flat damage also from Lethal Assault will be applied to both weapons, and you basically double dip with the flat damage for Primal Strike. 1 point Ring of Steel and 1 point to Circle of Slaughter, just there to, well, make enemies fumble and basically make you tankier, because enemies will, well, miss more of their attacks, right? Then 1 point Shadow Strike and 1 point to Dallas Justifiable Ends. If you are using the same component as I am right now with the Stormserpent set together, then putting more points of Shadow Strike would be good as well. However, this build is overall a little bit 2 point star to really like max this out. So even though I convert this one to lightning, it's still only a 1 pointer. 17 points to Pneumatic Burst and 14 points to Shadow Dance. These are really high up here, because I was actually struggling to get my way back, because the Stormserpent set has gotten more physical resistance on this patch, but it also lost some OA, and to make up for that we need to max out the Pneumatic Burst to get some of that OA back. Also 1 point to Breath of Morgoneth, of course, because we're dual wielding, to make this heal more available more often. And then 1 point to Elemental Awakening, which also actually gives me % lightning damage, and some Frostburn, which gets converted to, well, electrocute damage and also like mental resistances. 10 points to Veil of Shadow. Unfortunately, well, Trickster, or like rather Nightblade, has no lightning resistance reduction whatsoever, and there is, I think, no item that gives you lightning RR to Veil of Shadow yet either. But this is still very nice for basically effective DA, right? Reducing enemy OA by 130 and also reducing the total speed by 25%. Still worth taking for like a defensive aura. 15 points into Phantasmal Armor. Well, I needed some armor to like at least somehow feel tanky on a Trickster. It's kind of hard already to do that. Pierce Resistance, Freeze Rest, Petrify Resistance, also really nice to have. And then 1 point to Anatomy of Murder and 1 point to Murderous Repertoire. Honestly, this one, you could just skip this one, like you don't even need this one. 1 point here is always nice for like some % cunning, which translates to health and OA, and 7% multiplicative damage to humans also will affect your lightning damage, so that's still like always worth taking, at least for a 1 pointer. Shaman tree, 1 point Vinegar Totem and then 1 point to Blood Pact basically. This is just here to give us more lifesteal, right, as long as I am inside the range of the totem. I have 5% more lifesteal, so that is great. So try to always put down a totem whenever you're like fighting a tougher boss, and then you also have to try to stand inside the aura range of the Wendigo totem, right, to get the, well, buff from Blood Pact. Of course, 26 points to Promise Strike, right, this one is maxed out. Then we have the Transmitter here to spam the ability, 14 points to Torrent, and only 6 points to Storm Surge. I was playing around with like Torrent and Storm Surge, back and forth between these two. And then I realized, well, Torrent also actually gets flat damage from main hand and offhand, so any flat damage also will double dip for Torrent. And because of that, you actually do want to max out the Torrent part and not the Storm Surge. Generally, I would say that for endgame, Torrent is, I mean, yes, it's nice AoE, but like for single target, it doesn't really do that much, right? But in this case, since you're basically again double dipping with the flat damage, it is actually better than expected. 1 point to Ruined Devil, 14 points to Raging Tempest for 32% elemental RR, really nice, of course, like a must-have. We need to max this out because we have no RR whatsoever on the Nightblade tree, so we need to get as much as we can from the Shaman tree at least. 1 point Maelstrom, 1 point Morgoneth's Pact, 10 points Heart of the Wild, of course, and then 12 out of 10 points for Oakskin for higher DA, armor, Pierce Thrust, Aether Rest, right? And then, of course, the exclusive Stormcrawler's Pact has all that percent crit damage, execute damage, and percent lightning damage in there as well, and also stun resistance, so this is what you want, of course. Now, if you check out the devotions, I am using the tier 3 devotions Spirit of the Heavens as well as Korvaak. This one gives me like OA and DH crit as well as a chance to petrify the enemies, and, well, Spirit of the Heavens just like really nice overall, right? Like percent lightning damage, Aether Rest, and so on. Really nice ability. Then, of course, every single lightning build needs to use Arcane Bomb for the 35% lightning resistance reduction. This is a mandatory devotion for every lightning build. And then we get a couple of like fillers like Panther, Eel, Sailor's Guide there for like Pierce Thrust, movement speed, Fizz Rust, OA, Jackal for total speed and Fizz Rust, Spider for speed and so on, Hawk for OA and green affinity. And then, well, we have the Ghoul, right? The Ghoul is there for our lifesteal, right? Also the Circuit Breaker gives us insane Fizz Rust and lifesteal as well, really good. And the Viper is there for percent, like multiplicative elemental resistance reduction as well. Now, I was using Elemental Storm in the past here for higher RR. However, the Storm Serpent set also has RR in it. It is unfortunately only 20 flat, and if this was buffed to say 25, for example, this entire set would perform way better in my opinion. So not taking Elemental Storm here means I lose another 12% RR, which is already, well, we're already like short in RR and Trickster already, right? But I did end up not taking this and taking Ultus instead, like not the actual ability because we don't really need this ability because we already have Viper, but rather for the nodes, right? The nodes gives me like away, lightning damage, crit damage, electrocute damage, away, flat lightning damage here. This node is huge actually for a build like this because again we double dip with the flat damage, and then health and chaos thrust over here. You can, if you want to, of course, also play the proc instead of the health and chaos thrust. I didn't really feel like it's necessary, but you can if you want to, of course. Well, taking Ultus over Elemental Storm, or like the nodes here over Elemental Storm, the reason for that was also that, yet again, I needed more OA, right? Because Storm Serpent set lost its OA, so I had to spec into another devotion that gives me more OA. All of that wouldn't be as bad as if the Storm Serpent Orb actually gives you like more RR than only 20. I feel like this part could still be very much buffed about the set. Like if this had like, I don't know, 25 or 30 RR even, it would be like way better than it is right now. Now let me also show you how to get to these devotions. Early on in the game you always want to start out with the Jackal, right? So let's get to the Jackal first, and then you want to work towards the Widow devotion, right? So for Widow you want blues and greens. So for the blues you can choose to either get Sailor's Guide or Eel first, right? Let's pick the Sailor's Guide for example here. And for the greens you want to get something like Spider for the attack speed. Then you can get the Widow devotion, right? And put this to, I don't know, for example your Promise Strike or Shadow Strike, whatever you're going to use here. And then you want to get either the Last Year of Ghoul next, or the, well, Elemental Resistance Shred from Viper, and then get the other one after that. Now you want to work on towards getting Spirit of the Heavens, which means you will need 20 blue, right? So for 20 blue you want to get the Eel, and then you also want to get the Panther, which requires you to get a yellow crossroad node first, and then after finishing the Panther you can retrieve the red and the yellow crossroads because you won't need these in your final build anymore. So then you can just get the Spirit of the Heavens next, and then you just need 3 more green for, like, which you get through Hawk for Korvaak, as well as the 5 nodes in Ultos. Now, of course, if you would like to use a proc, you can use a proc instead of the node here, right, as I just said. And also, if you would like to use Elemental Storm instead of Ultos, you can also take out the points from Ultos, right? Get the Quill instead, don't take Hawk, and then put the point here into Crossroads, and then you can use the Ground's Crown like this, and then assign this to whatever you would like to. Now let us check out the gear. You can see that I'm using one Stormrend, of course, this one enables the build. Then we're using the Stormserpent set. This one is a really nice Trickster Lightning set, one might think, and it kind of is the Lightning Trickster set. And it got buffed, however it was absolute garbage before, and is somewhat borderline playable now, I feel like. It could still be a little bit better than it is right now. But yeah, Stormserpent's mark, right, gives me flat lightning, pierce to lightning conversion, +1 shaman, Fizz now as well. Chest has another like pierce to lightning conversion and flat lightning as well. And the belt has cold to lightning, and then the 3-piece gives another like 30% pierce and cold lightning conversion. So yeah, this is basically what you use for the conversion for all your flat damage from immersive blade bursts, from dual blades and so on. It's not quite 100% for both of them, but it's very close-ish, and it's better than nothing for sure. Then the second weapon is the Mythical Crystallum, which also actually got buffed this patch. However, this is generally better on a Savagery Lightning Archon on this patch. It's actually really good for a Lightning Archon. However, if you spam Promise Strike, then even then I think it's better than the second Stormrend, because, well, Stormrend has no attack speed and this one has attack speed. So if you want to spam Promise Strike, then you want to play 1 Crystallum instead of 2 Stormrends. If you want to just play cooldown Promise Strike, then of course you want to play 2 Stormrends instead. But for some reason also they nerfed the CDR on this. This used to be 0.5 seconds CDR to Promise Strike, and now 0.4 for like, I don't know what reason, apparently. I don't know, I've not seen a cooldown Primal Strike build with this that was like OP or anything. I have like lots of question marks about that, but oh well. It happened, so yeah, you wanna play Crystallum, but you wanna play spam anyway. For rings, I'm using 2 Glyphs of Kel'Thuzad Zoth. You can of course also use a Ring of Anubar. The Anubar ring from the Magi's has plus the Promise Strike on it as well. Should be worth using as well instead of these. Then you have the Conduit of Night Whispers. I was also using this mostly actually for the global conversion. You can see that I'm using the Shadow Strike, like Pierce and Acid to Lightning Shadow Strike conversion roll here. But these also have some global conversion attached to them, and this one has Pierce to Lightning conversion globally, so this means that also all the Pierce damage from dual blades will actually be fully converted with the set to, well, also for Promise Strike, right? It's really nice. Metal is Mark of the Farseer for like bleeding electrical damage to Promise Strike and +3 to Storm Surge. This metal is like fine, but not like overly amazing, so you can also use whatever other metal you would like to use on this day instead. Pants are Ferromane leg plates, +2 Promise Strike is like basically the only reason why I'm using this. Also the slow rest I guess is pretty nice. But other than that, you can also feel free to use green pants, like for example Chupacabras pants are really nice, with +3 to Lethal Assault or Tenacity of the Boar. Those are pretty decent as well. Boots, of course, we use Storm Titan Trails for stun rest and plus the Promise Strike as well, and also lots of health. And then the gloves, the Cinder Touch. This one actually got a huge buff as well on this patch. This one has now flat lightning damage as well as attack speed. So this is very, very good for any lightning build, like for example also a Cyclone Archon, right? Obviously benefits a lot from this. But also a build like this benefits a lot from the new Cinder Touch. So really, really nice change here as well. For the relic, we're using the Arm of the Storm relic for, well, more lightning damage on the aura and also +1 all skills to Shaman. So it's like the perfect fit here as well. You can see OA is actually decent now with the Ultos Devotion. DA is a little bit on the low side, 2700. However, remember that we are using 130 OA Shred on Veil of Shadow, and then another 130 OA Shred from Korvaak Devotion. So we basically have like 260 higher effective DA, which would put you at around 2980 as long as like all those debuffs affect your enemies. Fizz is actually pretty decently high, 41% here, right? That's actually not bad at all for a build like this. But also, well, a build like this needs this Fizz because, well, Trickster has no damage reduction whatsoever, like no enemy damage reduction debuff, apart from what I have on my boots right now, but that's only 10%, and usually you want like, I don't know, at least 16 or 20 or 25%, right? Like some abilities like Warcry give you up to like 30% if you like hard cap them, right? So 10% only less damage taken from the debuff here is already kind of bad. Then we have 0 absorption, right? Like other builds, like, I don't know, Maven's Sphere of Protection gives you like 20-25% absorption, right? There is no flat absorption, there's no Inquisitor's Seal here, there's no defense whatsoever on this build apart from health and 40% Fizz. So it's like, yeah, as I said, like, it's playable. But this number, like, this looks a little bit deceiving, right? This looks like a good number and should make like a tanky build, but you have no absorption and so on, so it's still like super squishy. Anyway, let's check out the dummy kill time real quick. This should be rather fast. Let's start at 10 seconds here and see what we can get here. It was 17-18 seconds. Actually, that was 17-18 seconds without the Wind Devil. Let's try this one with the Wind Devil again. Yeah, okay, it's like 16-17 seconds as well. Not really that much faster than I thought. So yeah, this is what the build can do. Let's check out some other gameplay here. I'll show you some other gameplay, and also I'll say already, thank you so much everybody for watching. I'll see you around on the next one. Does any of his attacks. Fuck. Fucked up. Imagine using Blade Barrier. Like, imagine ever using that skill, dude. Oh, damn. I used it too early. I thought he's already gonna die. Dude, how? Like, look at this. I don't know about that. Just kill them, right? Yeah, I mean, just kill them. I didn't expect Magis to be hard on this build, because if you have like good damage, then you can just burst them down with it, right? And do something like this, right? Maybe that's cheating, but... Am I cheating, guys? Maybe I am, but... Alright, let's not get hit by this stuff and just kill him. Alright, let's kill him. Oh, not so slow. Oh my god. What? Yeah, it was like super slow, right? He's super lightning resistant because it's Morgoneth. And then you can't leech, and then he just hits you because you have like no armor because of freaking mutator. Trickster life, sad life, right? Hammer monk! That's unfair, dude. He has a hammer. Alright, no cluster.